Thanks for having me. This is always a fun kind of moment in the calendar every year. I've been a user of 1080 gear since almost day one. I think Ben and I, probably there's some sort of squabble over who had the first units in North America, and I'm sure Peter could clarify that. But we were the first two, Ben Prentice and I, we had kind of the first quantums in North America. We were both first users of the original Sprint unit in North America, so early adopters there. And I'm glad Adam finally shut up and got out of here, because he's basically touched on all of my talk already. So save a few things for you. But yeah, I got introduced to this very, I guess, I don't know if it was random or happenstance, but there was some staff on the 1080 crew that were passing through Los Angeles on their way out to Palm Springs for a tennis tournament, right? And they had come through, and I can't remember how we got connected, but they had the original Sprint and brought it up into my gym. And like a lot of us, start playing with it, and immediately your brain starts racing, and you get very excited about all the different things it can do, and immediately had to have one. And so now. I will say in our gym in LA, we have 4 quantums, 2 sprints, and 4 of the cables. Just can't get enough of this stuff. We're using it all the time. It's a real core piece of not only the training, but the testing, right? So athlete evaluation, daily training, biofeedback, all the great things that it provides. Adam asked me to talk about isokinetics. Out of curiosity, show of hands, how many people are using isokinetics as part of their training? Is it? Yeah, so a little more than half. Okay, so my background so I'm a hockey guy, and before I went to LA, I was working with the Canadian Olympic ski team. And you'll hear Jan Seiler, Jan's over here. So Jan and I used to compete against each other. Jan's with Team Switzerland, and I was with Team Canada, and we kind of knew each other from those days. But in ski racing, eccentric training's all the rage, right? Like eccentric loading, and Jan's an expert in that space. And I was very excited about what the quantum could do from an eccentric loading standpoint. That was what I was really excited about, and that's why I wanted to get involved with the equipment. But as soon as we had our quantums installed, and we started to play with it and get educated on all of the different things that it could do, it was the isokinetics that got me really excited. Most of you have seen that. Some of you probably have that. We have 2 of those setups. And this is where things really kind of took off for me and changed the paradigm of how I thought about how I wanted to load hockey players in a season. So like Todd said, NHL schedule is very similar to an NBA schedule. It's 82 games. Next year is 84 games. We do it across about 8 months. So in 180 days, you got to play 84 games. You're playing every other day. You have to find ways to keep your athletes strong without beating them up, right? So we're playing every other day. How do we keep them strong? How do we load them effectively with enough intensity without creating a bunch of soreness? And that's where isokinetics became the sort of primary application for me. That was the thing that we really wanted to get involved with. So here's the thing about isokinetics is everyone understands how it works, right? Constant velocity, force is modulated to match the effort put into the device, right? So we know that more effort, higher force, lower effort, lower force. So it's a constant velocity, variable resistance. The great thing about isokinetics is it's auto-regulated. Auto-regulated means that the athlete decides how much force is being produced, not the load. There's no load. The athlete gets to decide. Okay, that's a really, really incredible thing. It's a powerful thing, particularly with athletes, whether that's off-season training in a facility like this or in-season training in a team environment. That's a huge thing. And the next piece there is that intent's critical. Intent is huge. Okay, Todd mentioned intent, and it drives intent. Okay, so intent is super, super important. If you remember, there's a great paper, and if you haven't read it, this was sort of a really landmark paper back from the 90s. I'm Canadian, so I'm proud that both the authors are Canadian. Okay, some things could come out of Canada. But this was about the intent the intended velocity is what drives adaptation, right? That's the basic premise of this paper. It's how hard you mean to go is what drives adaptation, not how fast you're actually going. So you can push a heavy weight, it's about how hard you push. So if we remove the external load and now we're back to this isokinetic type of loading, we see where the intent to push against something or pull against something is what's going to drive adaptation. So we have all these devices now that have awesome capacity, breadth, variability of things you can do. But being able to use that isokinetic setting on the road, like Todd does, we do the same. We take our sprint box on the road, and there's a bunch of things that we can do with athletes now that we can't normally do when we're traveling in small spaces, right? So that's a powerful tool. We've really dove in on the cable. Okay, athletes love it. Athletes all want to buy one for their home gyms. That's been an amazing tool. And this is just, to me, still the gold standard. I absolutely love my Quantum. Okay, that's the thing I use the most. It's just got so much capacity. I remember getting it too, and they put the Smith machine on, or the Smith attachment. I was like, what the hell am I going to use that thing for? Turns out we use it a lot. Use it a lot with athletes, particularly injured athletes. Jan does some really awesome stuff, crazy stuff. I saw an upside down leg press. That was cool. But this thing to me is still the best tool out there. And I'm going to come back to that. But so we started using isokinetics, and we used an exercise that we kind of came up with because we thought it looked a little bit like skating. So I don't think I invented the exercise, but we maybe popularized it in the 1080 community. I know Ben was also sort of early on this. We seem to always come up with the same ideas independently at the same time, so that always makes me feel good. So in this video here is an athlete that ironically trains with Ben, and I'm going to point out a couple things first. Is what you see here is he's set up and he's connected to one quantum, right? So one quantum, correct me if I'm wrong, someone from the engineering side, has a max capacity of about 2,200 newtons. Okay, so we first start doing this exercise. You're going to see this athlete load up, drive laterally. It's at 0.3 meters per second. That was through trial and error. We didn't have these sort of settings now that can help dial that in, but it works perfect. Okay, so we're training on this one quantum, and guys are producing 1,000 newtons, it's 1,200 newtons, it's 1,500 newtons, it's 17, and it's climbing and it's climbing and it's climbing, and guys are getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and then all the guys start hitting 2,200, and it kind of, no one ever gets past that. And that's when we said, why is it not going beyond this? And then I think that's the limit. Oh, we hit a limit. We didn't know there was they knew there was a limit. We didn't know there was a limit. So then we figured out how to get two of these machines together. Keep working, guys are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay, so now this guy, who's a goalie, so I know there's probably not a ton of hockey people in the room, probably one of the strongest players I've ever seen. He's also very freaky the way he moves on the ice with all those goalie pads on. It's very, very explosive player. He still holds the gym record for that particular exercise at, I believe it's 3,700 peak newtons on a single leg. Okay, so I think Jack was in that same ballpark, right, on two legs. So, I mean, just a world-class athlete, not to take away from what Jack did, but very, very freaky guy. And another thing you're going to see in the video is we have the guy holding his hands fixed. So we came up with this little hand control mechanism. Ben's going to talk tomorrow in more depth about this type of thing, but one of the things about isokinetics is it's easy to get really sloppy with it, right? Todd talked about getting competitive with it and how form can fall apart. Okay, this isn't bad. I don't know, Ben's shaking his head, he doesn't like it, but this guy's very, very flexible. He's very, very strong. Now he gets a little turn there. And I'm a little bit more lenient, I would say, when it comes to this form. Because I always said they have to push sideways, kind of, like, as long as they're somewhat in a good position, they still produce the force. Like, you can't, there's not a lot of things you can do here with your body that are going to increase the force. This is on the hip. that has to come through the hip, through the knee, into the foot, into the ground. Like there's not a lot of ways to cheat it. Now, this is also an old video, and he got really good at cheating it. Problem was we were using peak force as a scoring number. Peak force, like Todd said, is really easy to cheat, right? Jack the machine, get a little high number, and then mail in the rest of the rep. The solution for it was to look at average force. It wasn't that complicated. Let's look at the effort through the whole range of motion. Okay, so we could look at work output for the full rep. Turns out average force is just as good. So now we want to know how much force or work that they do from the initiation of the rep to the finish of the rep. That's a more important metric for us, okay? And that'll be something that we'll talk about in a second here about this squat and the combine. Next video is incredibly lame. I just shot it yesterday. Another great thing about isokinetics, it doesn't have to be a big, crazy compound move with massive outputs. Okay? So in our sport, we get a lot of shoulder injuries. I'm not a PT, but whether you're doing some internals and externals, however you want to look at the shoulder, pushing, pulling, rowing, right? There's a bunch of things you can do around the shoulder. We will use this machine very, very early. So take AC joint separation is probably the most common one. Guy sprains his AC. The typical clearance is, can you do a push-up? In hockey, it's like, if you can do a push-up, you can play. Okay. So what we'll do now is we'll get into these types of exercises. I took a screenshot here, so I have it set at 0.3. There's 3 kilos. 3 kilos is like, the handle almost weighs 3 kilos, right? It's like nothing. Okay, so we'll have the athlete perform some reps on the healthy side. We'll go to the injured side. Now, the injured side, the cueing is simply just move through the motion, make sure there's no pain. Was there any pain? No. Okay, go a little harder. Was there pain? No. Go a little harder. Was there pain? No. Was there? Go a little harder. And then you get to the point where they're like, okay, I kind of felt it, and you stop. Right away now, we're strength training. We're strength training an AC sprained shoulder in the acute phase. We're early into this, right? The athlete has a ton of confidence with this movement, with this type of loading. They feel safe doing it, and it allows us to speed this rehab process up. So this is it's another sort of, again, don't judge the exercise, but another way to apply isokinetic loading. Something super simple like this is a great way to use isokinetics. It can be done with the ankle. I know the basketball crew, they use a lot of stuff around the ankle. I don't know if you're rehabbing with this thing, but there's small joints that can be really, really precisely loaded using isokinetics. So the pros, according to me, not ChatGPT, I think it's an ultra safe way to load athletes with very, very high intensity, okay? And that's gonna be a theme here when I get back to the squat. It's auto-regulated. If they can't produce the force, they don't have to. There's nothing on them to injure them. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't get injured. There are some risky moves with this, and I'll touch on that at the end. Okay? We can also produce max concentric force in a dynamic movement. Okay? So similar to an isometric, we're getting very, very close to max force. Okay? So especially if you think about the speeds that would predict a 1 RM generally in big compound movements around that 0.3 meter per second range, it works out that we're setting that machine at that range. That's why we see those forces sort of peak in that space. The other cool thing is it's maximizing force production across the full range of motion. Okay? Because the loading is variable, we're not just training the muscle or the movement based on its strong point. Okay? So there's a length-tension relationship in all these muscles and all these movement patterns. We're maximally loading the movement from start to finish. Okay? So in a free load or a free weight, whatever you're doing, okay, you're limited by your strength at your strongest point. In this particular way of loading, you're maximizing the stimulus across the full range of motion. We get better adaptation across full range of motion, and it's done extremely safely. So that's another great benefit to isokinetic loading. Obviously, it can be scaled. It can be scaled for very small movements. It can be scaled up to very large movements. Okay, so application's pretty diverse. And again, I think there's some cool stuff there around the length-tension relationship stuff. So if you have a particular movement you like, if it's the lateral squat, if it's a push, if it's a pull, whatever it might be, those force tracings provide a lot of intel. Where are the peak forces happening? Are there dips? Are there valleys? Do you have nice big full arc, full impulse type movements and force generations? Okay, so there's some really cool stuff that you can start to look at in terms of length tension. Okay, we know where, you can see on the graph the excursion distance, where's the forces. There's definitely some diagnostic value there as well.